In this video, we're going to do a review of order of operations. So first thing I want you to do before you just start watching me is look at these words here and think about which operation comes first, which then comes second, like in a hierarchy, and how you would describe what you do with it as you go. So parentheses, we can also include grouping symbols. So any kind of grouping symbols like brackets, sometimes like the numerator or denominator of a fraction acts as a grouping symbol, absolute value symbols. Exponents, we could also think about roots. The roots and exponents are the same thing. So kind of think about that and then jot them down here. Which would you do first in a hierarchy, and then the second kind of thing. And within that hierarchy, how do you work? So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to fill in some stuff. So go ahead and do that as well. So just pause. Okay, so I started to write out some answers here. You can see where I have grouping symbols would come first, and you're going to work the innermost out. Now, if you have variables and you can't complete the operations of like terms within the inside the parentheses, you would have to distribute, but we're just working with numbers here, but you would have to deal with the grouping symbols. So it's not always doing what's inside, but it is trying to remove them. Exponents, you're going to work from left to right. Think first come, first serve. And usually people are fine with that. The common mistake comes to be when it says multiply or divide. There's a tendency to think always multiply first, because in our little acronyms we usually have M comes before the D, and that's how it's done. So I'm going to write here just as a note, it could also be divide or multiply depending on which comes first. So it's work left to right, first come, first serve. So really watch for that. It's very common just to kind of forget or not even think about it. So work left to right. It's really important within a hierarchy. And then add or subtract, the same kind of thing. It could be subtract or add instead, right? So try to just think about the hierarchy rather than an acronym little, method to remember that you may have learned. So now we're going to work with this. So for some of the operations, they should appear on the same line. If so, how is their order determined? What if you have more than one of something, like more than one set of parentheses or more than one exponent? If possible, explain on the line above next to the operation. So we've done that already. Now use the rules you've created to simplify the following expressions. After you complete the problem by hand, try to arrive at the same result using a calculator. This is an excellent exercise just to make sure everything's matching up. Make sure when you enter in a calculator, sometimes, parentheses, you have to put in additional parentheses to make it work right. Give all answers as whole numbers or fractions. We're not going to do any decimals or mixed numbers for this exercise. Okay, so I'll do a couple here, and you can pause the video and try on your own. I really recommend that. And then I'll do some problems for this video, and then I'll do another couple videos to keep them short. So this one here, number 2, 14 divided by 2 times quantity n minus 2 plus 1. So the first thing we want to focus on is the grouping symbols. So we're going to do what's inside there. 14 divided by 2. We're just going to bring down everything else. Times quantity. So it'll be 9 minus 2, which will just crunch that number to be 7, plus 1. And we just want to put a little equals off to the left. We're not making it an equation or anything. It's just saying this expression equals this one underneath. Now, this is where sometimes people tend to focus in on this. Oh, I have parentheses here. That's why I like to say grouping symbols instead of parentheses. Because parentheses, if you're not doing anything inside them, there's no action that needs to occur, then it just means multiply. Okay, it's not a grouping symbol. So that's where I really want to differentiate. And then we can look at this. Well, we have division and we have multiply. We're going to work left to right on this one. So now we're going to go ahead and do the 14 divided by 2 first, which would be 7. And then times 7. And you could change to a dot to notate that as multiply if you prefer, but you can just leave it as parentheses. Holding one value just means multiply. And then carry down the 1. So then in the next step, now I'm going to do the 7 times 7, and I would get 49, and then add my 1, just always carrying it down line by line. And finally, I get 49 plus 1 is 50. Okay, so take a minute to kind of go over that and think about that. Then try, so we'll call this an example, and this would be a classwork or, practice problem. If we were in a classroom, we would call it classwork, but we can just call it, we'll call it practice. So pause and practice. And of course, you can do that anytime. If you are submitting notes for anything for a class, for my classes, you'll want to include the examples and the practice problems in your submission. And once you've completed this problem, after you've paused the video, complete the problem and then check back for the answer. And then at the end, I'll put up solutions so that if you want to do them all at the end again and see the solutions, you can. But I'll put the answers as we go. Okay, so for the answer for this one was 15. Again, if you did not get that correct, I'll go through and write up solutions that you can look at the end of the video. For number 4, I'll do that as an example. Again, you can pause and do it along with me if you prefer. 41 minus, and this is brackets, 5 plus parentheses 12 minus 8 parentheses times 2, that dot is times, and then end bracket, plus 6 times 3. So I'm going to follow to the T here and do the innermost first. You'll find that you can do a little side work along the way later, but for now, make sure we do it just as it says. Whoops, that would be 5, bracket 5. And then plus the 12 minus 8. I'm just going to write a 4 in. I'm going to totally remove the parentheses and then carry down the dot and the 2, close bracket, plus 6 times 3. Now here's where, if you want, you could actually do that 6 times 3 at any point. It's kind of its own separate entity over there. Then we're going to do 41 minus, and then we're going to work within these parentheses or brackets. We need to do this 4 times 2 first. So bring down your bracket, 5 plus 4 times 2 is 8, because multiply comes before add, and then plus 6 times 3. Then the next thing, I'm going to work on those brackets. So at this point, it's 13 inside there, so I'm just going to write the 13 plus 6 times 3. Then I'm going to bring down the 41 minus 13 plus the 6 times 3 comes next, and that's going to be 18. Now I have some subtraction and addition. They are the same hierarchy, so I'm going to work left to right on those. And I will get 28. So I'm going to just put a little squiggle here to show you. So we'll have 28 plus 18. And then finally, we can complete this last step and get 46. Now again, you can pause the video and practice the next one on your own. And just keep in mind you have a cube here. So if you're not sure of what that is, you can go ahead and do it on your calculator. And again, for any of these, you try typing them into your calculator using the grouping symbols as needed and see how it matches up to everything. But if you were doing work out for an assignment or a test, you would want to write down all that you're typing and all the in-between steps as well, not just putting everything in all at once and then spitting out an answer. That wouldn't get credit. A list of answers is typically not going to give you credit for an assignment that's graded. Okay, so the answer for that number 5 here for practice is 1/8. Now that's a little bit tricky. Remember, we did not want any decimals involved, right? So you need to write your answer as a fraction. So when you're dividing, you can use the fraction bar instead. So in that last step. So for, let's see, number 6 is a good one. But 7 is a bit different. So I'm going to do number 7, and then I'm going to leave 6 as a classwork because we've gone over similar ones to that. So for number 7, you would do inside the grouping symbols first. So we'd have 6 squared minus 31 minus, and then innermost would be, within that I have a square root here. So I would do 10 minus 3. Then on the next line, 6 squared minus 31 minus 10 minus 3 gives me 7. And then I have 6 squared minus the 31 minus 7 is going to give me 24. Now I can remove the bracket. I could leave it there as well, but I don't need it. It doesn't mean to multiply or anything. It's just a subtract operation. And then on this last one, or most recent line, 6 squared would be 36, and then bring down the 24, and in my final answer I get 12. Okay, so pause the video and do number 6. The answer for number 6 is 29. Now I'm going to pause and fill in all the solutions for you so you can check those out if you missed any of the answers. Okay, so this wraps up this video. The answers and solutions for 3, 5, and 6 are shown there. 3 is pretty straightforward. 5, the trick is you got to make sure in that last step to write it as a fraction. And 6 gets a little tricky here. It's tempting to want to jump over there and do that 2 times 5, but that's going to wait it out a bit. Because remember, within a hierarchy, we work left to right. First